If your football team had one option in their playbook, the results probably wouldn't be great. The same could be said for your investments. SIBO index options like SPX and XSP can help expand your investing strategies with cash settlement and potential tax advantages. If you're ready for a more dynamic game plan, head to betterwithoptions.com. SIBO, life is better with options. Your investments could be too. There are risks associated with SIBO company products. Review the disclosures and disclaimers at SIBO.com/US_disclaimers.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet.
We bring in the outstanding Neal Coolong. Sir, always a pleasure anytime.
The pleasure, as always, is mine all the time. Hope you guys are well.
Sir, we just had a friend on that said his confidence in what the Eagles could do on Sunday grew because he watched last night's press conferences. Am I missing something here?
The punchline, I guess. I don't know. Salesmanship is an important part of life. It's involved in everything, and I guess if you want to buy into that, you can. Not sure if you ever watched the Simpsons, but there's an episode where Lisa and Homer are betting on games, and they're listening to the locker room interviews, and player says something like, "We're fired up, we're not going to lose." And Homer's like, "Oh, okay." So he goes out and bets $50 on him, and Lisa's like, "No, not going to happen. Look at his eyes. He doesn't have it." It to me, it's just funny because we will read into absolutely anything that convinces us of what we probably already want to go with. I don't know. I'll say this, though. I think Philadelphia will win. That's who I'm picking in the game.
Yeah.
But, I spent exactly 0 seconds on any kind of press conference coverage from last night. In fact, I'm surprised they even still do it. People complain about the Pro Bowl, and rightfully so in a lot of ways, but the media day at the Super Bowl, in my opinion, is the least valuable, most obnoxious event the NFL puts on every year.
Yeah, it certainly is, without question. Now, I understand, like, if you're NFL Network, of course you carry it. It's part of being NFL Network, and it's what you do. The bottom line is one team has Saquon Barkley, and the other team doesn't. And I think that's just like in the past, one team has Patrick Mahomes and the other team doesn't. Like last year was Purdy and Mahomes. Now, which quarterback do you think was going to bring him back late? It'd be Mahomes. There's something about Barkley. It's not a magical thing. It's just his talent is just usable in so many ways, even on plays where he doesn't touch the ball. He's almost as valuable when he's not touching the ball because of how he blocks now. I just think he's the biggest difference in the game.
I would agree with that, and I think I was talking to a few people. My thing is, if Barkley breaks something 40-plus yards, I think they win. I'll put it this way. If the Eagles win the game, which I think that they will, I think you're going to see Barkley's going to have at least one explosive play, 40-plus yards. Whether he scores or not, I don't know. But to me, that's going to be the indication of the real difference between these teams. I think it's tough to argue. At the top level, top three players, Kansas City is step for step with Philadelphia.
Yes.
Top 20 players, I don't think it's close, to be honest. Philadelphia's just got the dudes, and we're seeing that. And this is coming from somebody that said after week 2, week 3, Nick Sirianni's in the hot seat. Yeah. I think he's done a remarkable job throughout the season within the conference of the buzziest team, the fan favorite team. Everybody wanted Detroit. Detroit was fun to watch. They're a great story. Those are press conferences I'll listen to. Dan Campbell's got something to say about anything. The Eagles stayed under the radar, and really, even though they were winning, people look at kind of the catalyst for their deep postseason run as that beating they gave the Steelers once they aired all the drama publicly, or they mentioned something I don't know if they had a face-to-face as a team or whatever it is that happened, but you saw them come out of the gate. That game against Pittsburgh is just like, oh my, nobody's beating this team. These guys are for real. If they can continue playing like that, they're going to be very difficult to beat, and they haven't lost. So you look at them overall as a team that really is dialed in all three phases of the game. And Barkley has been the straw that stirred the drink throughout the season. But I think the running back position doesn't have to be the tip of the spear, but it's going to be the most beneficial to everybody else, almost in a point guard fashion within an NFL team nowadays. And you hit the nail on the head. It's because when he doesn't have the ball, he's still bringing a lot. Yeah. I've said this a bunch here and other places as well. Le'Veon Bell, when he was with the Steelers, he was the most valuable player because of what attention he would draw away from everybody else. If he wasn't getting the ball, the two guys that were dedicated to him were suddenly useless on the field. You've got advantages down the field. When you have a good quarterback that can deliver the ball to good receivers down the field in those advantage situations, you're going to make plays. And that's what the Eagles do. To take absolutely nothing at all away from A.J. Brown, who I think is one of probably the best all-around receiver in the game. Devontae Smith is an incredible receiver. Jalen Hurts is doing a great job keeping all of that together, if not playing at a spectacular level. But so much of that is predicated on Barkley. And the reason I say that is I saw Philadelphia play their last 8 games last season without Barkley. Look at them. They were a train wreck. They couldn't do anything right. In fact, the conversation we had was I'm not sure we've seen two teams enter the playoffs as one of the worst 3 teams in football, like we did with Philadelphia last season and Pittsburgh this season.
Right.
Barkley is the catalyst behind a very talented team that was fractured, that had issues. Barkley brought all of that together, and not through rah-rah speeches or anything like that, but just simply his ability to make plays with the ball, to set up other guys without the ball, and let Philadelphia be a difficult matchup in every area of their offensive game plan. And on top of that, they got some beasts on defense who were playing really well, particularly their front seven. So, I think it's funny to me, Kansas City's favored in this game. I've bet against Kansas City before. It's not necessarily the best idea, but what I know is Philadelphia is going to be the best team that Kansas City's played in their Super Bowl era. And Philadelphia, if they are able to get Barkley going, they're going to win by a comfortable margin, in my opinion.
If Barkley breaks off one 40-yard run in the game, I think that's huge for Philadelphia. It's one of those home run plays.
Yeah, exactly.
And for Philadelphia, okay, these would be my concerns. My concern would be Burks, the linebacker, who's a backup. He's played well for a backup, but he's still a backup, and he's not great in the pass game. And Slay is a huge problem because I just think he's not as good as he claims he is. And number 3, Mahomes' ability to run. Those would be the 3 concerns I would have if I were Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would look at it as really this is not the track team kind of Chiefs that, for whatever reason, we're still kind of hanging on to. If Philadelphia is the big play threat in this game by quite a bit.
Yep.
They have the playmakers to be able to do that. I agree with you. Darius Slay is definitely not at all what he thinks he is as a player. An emotional, we put it this way, I'm sure there's going to be an official breaking him up from somebody else a couple times during the game.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But as far as making plays down the field, I don't think he's the type of guy that can do that, and A.J. Brown will eat him alive. If they get coverage on him one-on-one, Slay is nowhere near as physical as Brown can play. They're going to be able to go over the top. In other words, if I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm saying, look, Jalen Hurts, we want to be aggressive in this game. We're going to attack downfield.
Gotta be. Yeah.
The game is not over if you turn the ball over, okay? We want to take shots, smart, calculated risks. we can bury this team quickly, and we can come back on them. If we're down 17, we're still in the game. If we're up 17, they're not going to be in this game. So let's try to get after this. Be smart with the ball, obviously, but you got some talented players around you. I don't think they can keep up with us deep down the field. If you can get the pass off before Chris Jones lands in your lap, which I'm sure he's going to do because he's Chris Jones, we can take this to them. We can make splash play after splash play and really put the pressure on them to follow that up. And I don't think they can do that with the kind of dink and dunk style that they have nowadays. Taking what we have, taking what they're given and trying to possess the ball, do something with it and try to keep it, relatively close. I mean, basically what they did with Buffalo. Eventually Buffalo's going to crack. We know we can play situational football better than anybody else. If Philadelphia can stay out of that, in other words, not 3rd and 3, but convert 2nd and 6. Keep going at first down. Mm-hmm. Don't let them get into sub packages. Don't let them play to their strength, which they do really well. Just punch them square in the mouth. I think Philadelphia has an advantage just in the sense that they have more explosion. They have more, swagger, if you will. They have the ability to make those plays. I don't think Kansas City does much.
Okay, so let's bring it back to Pittsburgh for a moment. They have the interesting decision as to what to do with the quarterback spot, right? All right. So you've looked at it, contracts, so forth. What do you think they ought to do at quarterback?
Pray. They don't have many options. No. Really, they've got 2 quarterbacks that they're realistically in the market to sign as we sit and discuss this now. And let's keep in mind, now we've gone backwards years to the point where they set themselves up to decide between Wilson and Fields. So in that sense, this is what they've created, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much you really like that option. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Jerry Dulac of the Post-Gazette reported, I think, an hour or so ago, the big game offensively the Steelers had against the Bengals, and they scored 44 points, and it was the craziest Steelers game we've ever seen. Right. Offense actually being productive. Apparently, in that game, Russell Wilson had the ability to change plays at the line, call different pass patterns, things like that. And that was not given to him after that, which was the 5-game losing streak. The point of it was kind of odd that you had this big offensive outpouring, and then they didn't score more than 17 points a game for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. And the article kind of suggested there was some friction between Wilson and Arthur Smith and his freedom, what he was allowed to do, what he was not allowed to do. It's interesting to me because, one, Arthur Smith doesn't have final say over everything that they're doing. That's a head coach, if not a general manager and owner distinction. And two, I don't know if you noticed it, but Cincinnati might have had the worst defense the NFL has seen in the last 10 years, and that was their opus in that game. Yeah. You and I talked about that after. I don't think I've ever seen an NFL defense play as poorly as they did that day. I don't think a couple play calls here and there is really the difference between what we saw in that Bengals game, a non-playoff team, versus the gauntlet they had to run through in the next 5 games, including playing Cincinnati again and scoring 17 points. So where there's smoke, there's fire with Wilson. Obviously, a lot of speculation around Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, possibility of them reuniting there. I don't know how valid that is, considering I don't think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson liked each other in Seattle. That's why he got traded to Denver. I'm not sure that's something that they necessarily want to revisit. But if anything, I would say it's competition in the market. Wilson's dollar is going to be worth a lot more than Fields' as well. So from the Steelers' perspective, Russell Wilson at probably $25 million a year. Is that better than Fields at probably at least the 10 that Sam Darnold got with the Vikings last year? It's probably what he'll command within the market. I don't know which direction they would go. What I know is you had significant problems offensively with both of them. Whether that resulted in the game being won or not is not the question. How good was the team drive to drive? How good were they in clutch situations? How fluid was their offense? I'm not sure it was significantly better with Fields in the first 4 games, but Wilson's offense, the first 4 games he was with Pittsburgh, was a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
They fell apart after that, and I'm not necessarily surprised. I think they kind of got away with a few things that the first half of the season that they would pay for in the second. For me, my bet is Wilson. I think that's the one they would go with. The veteran experience, I think he brings more to the table than Fields does. Fields got the upside that I guess everybody still sees, despite the fact he's started 50 games in the NFL and hasn't performed exceptionally well in a whole lot of them. Other people, I think, would prefer to overpay for Fields rather than Wilson. The Steelers are the type of organization they're going to prefer to go with the veteran with the experience, especially if more money is involved. Wilson, galvanized the team. He brought a lot out when he came into the game. And you might remember that first drive or two that he had when he first started were rough, and it got substantially better after that. And it looked like they really were, performing well for a stretch of time there. The Steelers know that they have that. I think that's what they would rather go with. They know what they have with Fields. I think he's a backup level, fringe starter type of guy. Either way, what they would really like to do is get a veteran quarterback signed to a 2-3-year deal, something like that. I think they're going to dip into the draft, try to find somebody that they can develop.
Just so you know, between you and me, I don't see that guy in the draft. Lots
of Steelers-worthy quarterbacks in this draft. That's not going to deter them. Just watch.
I understand.
I agree with you overall, but you look in third, fourth round, it wouldn't surprise me. You grab a guy that you feel has some upside. Give him some time to develop. At some point, you almost just have to do it. I'm not saying they're going to be Jalen Hurts, a non-round one guy that can develop into a star-level quarterback, but at some point, you're going to have to develop a quarterback. It's binary. They're not going to draft in the top 5 in the right quarterback draft. I know everyone talks about how great next year's draft is going to be. We always say that. Every year, next year is always a great quarterback draft.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see what happens. But they've got to find somebody that's got to develop them at some point.
Let me ask you something about T.J. Watt. I know he gets banged up and so forth, but I didn't see it from him this year. That's just me. I'm a neutral observer. What did you actually think of his actual game performance as to how he played?
We saw, and I remember this, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was against Baltimore. Maybe a series or two went by. He didn't really, go all out. And they don't tend to do that when Lamar is back under center. They'll try to rein him in, keep him in the pocket a bit. But there was a play, Watt really got off the line. I think he caused the pressure or something, but you saw the explosion. And it was like, yep, that's Watt. That's the guy that we know. Not see that guy a ton this past season. Now, let's be honest, the standard for him is, it's pretty high. Overall, he definitely could have seen more, and it led me to believe that I feel like he's playing with an injury that we don't know about. Right. Steelers like to, excuse me, not to say play cat and mouse with the injury report, but if there's absolutely no doubt that a player is going to play in a game, they won't list an injury. Because that's really, in a literal sense, what the injury report is supposed to be. We all know what it actually is, but the rule is, any injury that might hold him back in practice or a game, you list. If it's not holding him back, they're not going to. But you watch him on the field, he was not the same guy. Obviously, there are concerns with the fact that he's been playing a huge number of snaps his entire career, and at some point, that's going to, wear out a bit. They did something, I think, a bit more often than they have in the past, and really tried to rest him for a couple plays at a time instead of just one or two. I don't know if that really had much help, and I don't think it's a conditioning issue with him. I just didn't feel like the explosion was there, which could be injury related. There was a note, I think it was something in regards to not being in the Pro Bowl, with him having surgery pretty quickly after the season ended. Now, it could be for a variety of things. A lot of guys, get surgery in the off season. It's not to say that he played through, a pretty significant injury all year long, but I feel like we'll find out, perhaps in August that he was playing a bit more hurt than we thought he was. He had a thumb injury at one point. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily impact his get off on the line, but when you're engaging with a blocker, you need to use your hands to move around. You don't have a working thumb, you're probably not going to be as effective. Maybe that was part of it. I'm not 100% sure, but overall, I do not think we saw the TJ Watt that we're used to seeing. And it could be a few different things. The fact that he's played at the level he has for as long as he has something to do with it. But we'll see. I hope it's not, kind of the beginning of the end for him, because obviously he's a great player to watch, and the team needs him more than they ever have. But it goes to show, how many offensive issues this team has had during the prime of what is absolutely, without a doubt, one of the 5 best defensive players of his era. It's really unfortunate to see them, go into another year in which TJ Watt has not even won a playoff game, let alone sniffed the Super Bowl. So it's something the Steelers really need to weigh a bit more heavily moving forward. They're going to have to figure something out.
You are the best, my friend. I appreciate you so much. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Neal Coolong.